It's the age-old showbiz archetype, out with the old and in with the new. In today's episode, we're analysing how the industry can divide women, how this impacted Ariana and Mariah, what Christmas song eventually brought them together, and if there was ever a feud to begin with.
It is like the next or the new Mariah Carey. It's just, the fuck does that mean? Like, I'm the Mariah Carey.
When Ariana broke away from acting to concentrate on music, reviews were overwhelmingly positive. Here was a woman who seemed to provide an antidote to the vacuous period in pop where singing skill had taken a back seat. Ariana arrived with legitimate vocal ability, showing great potential. Her cover of Carey's iconic #1 Emotions gained viral attention. Comparisons quickly occurred between Grande's debut and Mariah, particularly the mid-90s Daydream era. In my opinion, I think these comparisons were not only justified, but unfortunately, a weakness in the creative armour of Grande, or at least the executives pulling the strings. Now, in order to provide context, let's take a momentary time travel back 30 years or so. It's 1990, a year of important debuts. The first internet web page occurred, Dolly the Sheep is the first mammal to be cloned, and Mariah Carey debuts. It's an album she had major creative control over. However, Columbia Records were heavily interested in copying Whitney's style and applying that to Carey's music. We have to remember that if a company can repeat a tried and tested formula of success, then they will not just advise it, but they will enforce it. And as a result, Mariah was often pressured into working with Whitney's producers to duplicate her sound and therefore her success.
Then the record label wanted to kind of guide me in direction to work with producers that she had worked with, and I already had my own demo of songs that I'd written and I had my own identity, but everybody wanted to push me that way.
Comparisons between Carey and Houston also began to dominate showbiz media, as Mariah was the new solo diva in town. As a result, for much of the 90s, until their eventual Oscar-winning duet, the dynamic between Mariah and Whitney was polite, but often with an air of tension.
What do you think about when people compare Mariah Carey to you?
Let me think. I think she's a good singer, yes. I think that Mariah is Mariah, and that's what she should be known for.
So understandably, there was like a little bit of weird tension.
Last week we had Mariah Carey here in the studio.
You did? How is she doing?
Well, she was doing great.
Oh, great.
Yes.
That's great.
What I'm curious about, what do you think of her?
What do I think of her?
Yes?
I don't think of her. I don't think of her. Musically, what do I think of her?
Yes.
I think she's a good singer.
Not for being compared or sounding like me. You know, I don't really hear it. You know, I don't think that she sounds like me, nor do I sound like her.
Okay.
The label was trying to make Mariah the new Whitney, and the media was hungry to push two women into a shady catfight. As a result, the best way to describe their dynamic was friendly tension. However, Mariah often fought hard against Columbia and had successfully signed into her contract that she would write her own material, and quickly showcased that although she shared a diva crown with Whitney, she wasn't sharing ideas. Mariah had her own vision and ran with it, and my God did she do that successfully, dominating the 90s as the most successful artist of the decade. When we take a step back and look at Ariana's debut, the line between inspiration and imitation can become foggy. Now, I don't think it's fair to hate on Ariana for saturating her debut with so many Mariah-isms. More than likely, this was the result of a persuasive label that wielded influence over a young budding singer who had little power but a big dream.
She's the greatest vocalist who's ever lived, and I love her. I grew up loving her.
Ariana was still praised for her raw talent and potential. However, the comparisons were ubiquitous. Eventually, Billboard noted that to be called a miniaturized version of a musician who's been showcasing their aesthetic for decades implies that you're copying the past, hoping that time simply forgot the blueprint you're repurposing. No one wants to be seen as that girl. As a result, tensions continued. In 2014, Mariah sat down for a talk with The Breakfast Club, and during a light-hearted and candid interview, she was asked how she felt about this issue.
Alright, Ariana Grande, they always say she's a young Mariah. How do you feel about those comparisons?
But I wish everybody all the best of luck, and if this is a career path that they choose, hope that they can achieve longevity.
Because, Jay-Z always says, don't compare me to nobody, I'm offended.
You said a lot of things I agree with.
Now with this album. Now I think this is a very human response. Carey was polite and cordial towards Ariana and only showed a degree of tension not towards Ariana but towards the conversation topic. A topic she had been pressured into with Whitney 20 years prior. It's also important to look at this period in Mariah's career. A level of frustration is understandable. Mariah had an unusual hit with Beautiful. It did go platinum, but it never reached the top 10. And unfortunately, the accompanying remix was cancelled indefinitely when Mariah slipped and dislocated her arm. This occurred during the filming of the music video. Momentum for this era halted and eventually was lost. And when you combine that with the changes in management, multiple changes in the release date of the album, and the divorce of Mariah and Nick Cannon, this year for Mariah was turbulent to say the least. To be consistently asked about the new Mariah on the block, that's going to cause friction. No one wants to feel replaced or disposable. And as Mariah was now in her 40s, the glaring shadow of ageism felt omnipresent. Would anyone who sacrificed their life for their work over 20 years enjoy the feeling that they're being cast aside not because they're unable to do the work, but because society would prefer a newer model with less wrinkles? The fact that Mariah only said,
but I wish everybody all the best of luck, and if this is a career path that they choose, hope that they can achieve longevity.
Well, that highlights how polite she really was. Overall, I don't believe Mariah was frustrated with Ariana. She was frustrated with the game, an industry that was trying to transpose the ideas of a veteran onto a newcomer and to deny that younger singer the freedom to make mistakes and grow. Ariana would soon request that questions regarding Mariah would not be asked, and to be honest, I understand that requirement because the question was not a question. It was a shady declaration hidden within a question to drum up controversy and add very little to the conversation. Fandoms, as they often do, became toxic and pathologically disagreeable. And suddenly the frustration that the two singers had with the same tired questions being asked ad nauseum snowballed into this idea that a serious feud had developed. Memes added to the problem, and eventually it became obvious that the actual feud was between the Lambs and the disciples of Ariana. Now, with later projects, Ariana would move away from the Mariah-heavy inspiration and towards other sounds, explaining this on Carpool Karaoke.
You practiced being able to do that by listening to just listen to it over and over and over. Really?
Yeah, the Divas. It took me a minute to find my own sound because I was just singing their songs so much growing up.
However, the supposed feud was still like a forest fire looking for shady trees to burn. And I think on one particular occasion, Mariah added wood to the embers. In 2016, Andy Cohen asked Carey whether or not she knew a list of female stars. Now, of course, this is influenced by the legendary shade towards J-Lo. This happened when, in a conversation about music, she point-blank refused to even acknowledge the existence of J-Lo at all, simply uttering the famous words,
Und was ist mit J-Lo?
Die kenne ich nicht.
Oops.
Now, when Andy asked Mariah if she knew Ariana, her response was,
Ariana Grande, do you know her?
No.
Okay, you don't know her. When I looked at her early in the career, I thought, wow, this is kind of an homage to Mariah a little bit. Did you feel that?
I don't know when early in the career was.
I don't know, a couple of years ago. A couple of years, I don't know.
I don't know. I really don't. Honestly, I'm not familiar. I listen to hip-hop more than I listen to pop music.
Now, this wasn't exactly welcoming, but it wasn't totally dismissive either, echoing the icy vibe Whitney gave off when discussing Mariah in the early 90s due to tension.
What do you think of her?
What do I think of her?
Yes?
I don't think of her.
And I think what we have to understand is that behind the wigs, the entourage, the number one, the glitter, these divas are human, with real emotions, legitimate fears, and where Mariah had now entered a period where her bad vocals went viral. Her great vocals went unacknowledged by the media. And her latest music wasn't as commercially successful as the past. It's not surprising that she would address the Ariana topic with a level of passive-aggressive caution. Did she feel like she was being dethroned? Mariah dragged herself out of an unstable childhood of neglect, drugs and violence and became a star. The last thing she wanted to do was abdicate, and therefore she was on the defensive. But as the years progressed and Ariana found her sonic self, the iciness swiftly melted into a sea of mutual admiration. Ariana greeted Mimi on her birthday, and Mariah shared this on her Instagram story. Ariana also participated in a video of friends and family performing All I Want for Christmas Is You in a lip sync, and when that perennial classic finally hit #1 in 2019, Ariana openly praised Mariah. Ultimately, I think, as Grande claimed her own identity and enough time had passed, we began to see a warmer rapport. And then, in a year that felt like a Black Mirror episode, 2020 threw one more surprise at us. The Christmas collaboration between J-Hood, Mimi and Ari was released. The three women all showcasing their individual vocal skills in a performance that gave off a Motown girl group throwback vibe, full of festive charm to brighten the COVID years and, more importantly, dispelled the idea that a feud ever really existed. This was more a human issue, a dislike of feeling replaced, the problem of comparison and ageism and control. And with the two singers' whistle notes entwined together, their collab was in direct opposition to the industry that unsuccessfully tried to divide women. Hi, I'm Diva Talk and thanks for watching.